The following program presents principles designed to promote good health. It should not take the place of personal professional care. Viewers should always consult their qualified health practitioner before considering alternative treatment.
You know what your brain can do? Do you know what it can do? That bit of fat and water that's sitting inside your cranium. It contains billions of neurons, each forming thousands of connections. A single byte consists of 8 bits of information, and the human brain can store more than 1 quadrillion bytes of data. That's a petabyte. As mentioned in an article in Scientific American, the memory capacity of a human brain was testified to have equal to 2.5 petabytes of memory capacity. A petabyte means 1,024 terabytes or 1,000,000 gigabytes, so that the average human brain can accumulate the equivalent of 2.5 million gigabytes of memory. As per the reports of the study conducted by Stanford, the human brain compares constructively with the most authoritative modern computers. The cerebral cortex in the human brain is proficient in processing 125 trillion synapses, which may stock as much as, 2.5 petabytes of overall memory capacity. They say it can compare with some of the best computers. Let's just compare the human brain with a computer. My friend in Australia, this was his first computer. It's an Amstrad, and you notice it looks like a tape deck on the side. Well, that's not for listening to music. That was what drove the computer. And for him to play a video game, it took 30 minutes for the computer to read off the tape before he could play the game, and that's what he ended up with, this pixelated monster right here. He then moved on to this game here. This game's called Syndicate, and Syndicate takes 5 floppy disks to run. A floppy disk has a capacity of 144 megabytes of data. Today, for just under $3,000, you can buy one of those things that talks to you when you're up on stage. You can buy an iPhone 14. And an iPhone 14 can hold a terabyte of data. That's 728,000 floppy disks. In fact, you can get that on an SD card the size of your thumbnail. 728,000 floppy disks. The billions of bits of information being uploaded to Facebook every day, the Facebook super storage computer, their capacity is expected to be around the 30 exabytes of data. And if you take all of the storage facilities of all the big computer organizations in the world, all of the social media platforms, all the SD cards, every computer, every cell phone in the world, every hard drive in the world, it comes to 10 zettabytes of data. What's a zettabyte? I can hear you asking that. Does it matter? Well, a byte is 8 bits, and we just lost a bit. A kilobyte is 1,000 bytes, so that's 8,000 bits of information. A megabyte is 1,000,000, a gigabyte is 1,000,000,000, and then you've got these other numbers. I'm not even going to try and describe what they are, but a terabyte, a petabyte, a exabyte, and then a zettabyte is that number. That number is incomprehensible to the human brain. It's such a big number, we can't even begin to comprehend how big that number is. Every strand of double helix deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, has 215 petabytes of data. Each human being has 1.7 quadrillion strands of DNA. How many zettabytes for all of the IT in the world? 10 zettabytes. In each human body, there is 370 billion zettabytes of data. No wonder the psalmist said we're fearfully and wonderfully made. I want to look at our physical wellness now and then go on to the mental wellness. I said earlier that the biggest killer today is these two weapons here. In our society, we have heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. Just like the Egyptians, arthritis, osteoporosis, weight, cholesterol, prostate-specific antigen, blood fats, which are triglycerides, are all going up in our society. And these are what are killing 4 out of every 5 people in our society. The other day, I had my iPhone 14 on the side of the spa port, one of those rare occasions when my wife and I were at home. We've got a hydrotherapy set up at our house. We were having some devotional time studying the Bible in the spa pool, and my phone got splashed with water. And when I went to plug it in to charge it, it gave a warning that was water in the lightning port. Now, if you're not sure what a lightning port is, it's that little thing on the phone that you plug your charger into. And it said you have to dry it out slowly. And my phone had run out of power. I had to make an urgent phone call. I had one coming in, and I kept trying to plug it in, and it kept warning me not to do it. So I had an idea. What I need to do is maybe spend $3 million on a machine that will dry out the lightning port on my iPhone really quickly. Or I could do some research, maybe a couple $100 million worth of research, to find a chemical that I can drop in there that will dry it out instantly. That would work, wouldn't it? What would be the most sensible thing? Make sure it doesn't get wet in the first place. But you know, we deal with medicine just like that. We spend millions of dollars on a machine or on a chemical concoction to try and deal with the symptom instead of trying to stop the problem in the first place. And I'm going to make sure my cell phone, when it's flat, doesn't get water splashed on it again. You can take them underwater, but you can't charge them again until they dry out. And when we look at our society today with all these diseases, what we do is we look at building a machine or finding a chemical concoction that will address the symptomology of those particular diseases. And that's where drug treatment comes in. And you know that if you've got heart disease, taking arthritis drugs or prostate drugs aren't going to help your heart disease. You take blood pressure medication and it's not going to help your high cholesterol. And in those years that I told you about that I spent 10 years studying, I was just avidly studying health, I learned that cancer is not a deficiency in 5-FN or carbamazepine or any of the other chemotherapy drugs. Diabetes is not a deficiency in metformin. Having high cholesterol is not a deficiency in statin drugs. PSA, having prostate cancer is not a deficiency in a Rebor or ABCs. But that's how we treat it. We treat symptoms, and you need to have a whole lot of different drugs and machines to treat each of these diseases. We would be here for hours if I dealt with every disease. I just want to look at high blood pressure. When you go in with high blood pressure, this is the options the doctors looked at. This is what's before them. These are the generic stables of drugs. So you've got diuretics, alpha blockers, alpha receptor agonists, you've got beta blockers, AC inhibitors, ARBs, calcium channel blockers, you've got vasodilators, direct renin inhibitors, aldosterone receptor antagonists, and peripheral adrenergic inhibitors. Each one of those has got a whole stable of drugs in that genre. And your doctor has to work out which ones to give you. You notice that the words inhibitors, blockers, it sounds like they're stopping processes in your body. We're just going to look at a couple. Angiotensin receptor blockers. They reduce the action of the hormone angiotensin. This hormone has a powerful constricting effect on the blood vessels, increasing blood pressure. Angiotensin 2 also stimulates salt and water retention in the body, which further increases blood pressure. Aldosterone antagonists, I'm not even going to read that word, make your kidneys move extra water and salt into your pee so that they're out of your body. They do this while preventing you from losing potassium, which aldosterone makes your kidneys eliminate. Doesn't matter if you don't understand the science. I did my head in for 10 years studying this stuff, but renin is an enzyme that helps control your blood pressure and maintain healthy levels of sodium and potassium in your body. It's made by special cells in your kidneys. Renin is released into your bloodstream when your blood pressure drops too low. If we had time to stop and discuss each one of these slides, we'd understand that there's a danger by stopping the processes. Calcium channel blockers work by preventing calcium from entering the cells of the heart and arteries. Calcium causes the heart and arteries to squeeze, that's contract more strongly. By blocking calcium, calcium channel blockers allow blood vessels to relax and open. Not a good thing when you need them to close. And I ask the question, is there a problem with angiotensin, aldosterone, renin and calcium in my body? Is it a problem that it was there? Is there a malfunction or manufacturing problem that my body does all these amazing processes that we want to interfere with them? There's not a problem with them. And then this one here, non-dihydropyridine, it has a direct effect on the electrical signals to the heart. When was the last time you told your heart to beat? Mawhai, did you tell your heart to beat today? This is an amazing fact. The heart has its own electrical supply and will continue to beat even when separated from the body as long as it has an adequate supply of oxygen. And somehow they think that messing with that electrical supply is a good idea. No wonder the psalmist said, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are your works, and that my soul knows right well. Our bodies are amazing. I don't believe they were made dysfunctional and we have to find all these drugs to interact the natural processes of our hormonal and enzymatic function. The Australian government, let's give them a shout out. The Australian government on their website have got this, you can go and check it out yourself, what else can I do to reduce my blood pressure? They say you may be able to reduce your blood pressure and reduce your risk of heart disease in other ways. That's in all the drugs and all the machinery and all the surgeries. Some people are able to reduce their blood pressure without taking blood pressure medicines. So what do they suggest you can do? It helps to exercise regularly, limit alcohol, reduce salt intake, maintain a healthy diet, lose weight if you have overweight or obesity, and quit smoking if you do. That's called lifestyle medicine. That's what we're involved with. That's what the DART program's about that Greg's going to share with you. It's lifestyle medicine where your lifestyle addresses the symptomology of the disease. And do you know the beauty of lifestyle medicine? It's the only treatment that treats all of the diseases. So if you've got high blood pressure and you use lifestyle medicine, that prescription right there, not only will your blood pressure come right, but you'll lose weight. Your PSA should come down. If you're dealing with cholesterol issues, they'll come down. Everything comes down. It is actually one size fits all. That's the beauty of lifestyle medicine. That book that I talked about earlier, the Ministry of Healing, that absolutely led me to the Bible, the author says that 85 to 95% of all illness starts in the mind. Starts in the mind. So if our thinking's not right, then we might make some wrong choices. I was reading some research by a Cambridge professor in the 1990s, just towards the turn of the century, and he did some research and he came up with this statistic that 80 to 95% of all disease starts in the mind. Exactly the same statement. So how important then to look after this thing up here? To look after our brain. Remember William Shakespeare said, oh God, that men should put an enemy in their mouths to steal away their brains. This thing is so complex. This is where we make cognitive decisions. This is where we can connect with God. Do you think it's any surprise that every culture in the world has some sort of intoxicant to stop our brain working so well? Who would think it would be a great thing to lift the cover under the bonnet of your car where it says do not spray with water and throw a cup of coffee over the computer in your car and then laugh while all the lights are flashing on and then the car won't go? That's what people do to their bodies. Mess with the computer and then think we had a great night because Yeah, man, I woke up, I was all beaten and bruised, and yeah, I think I'm going to get called into court tomorrow, but yeah, it was a great night. You know, we need to look after this thing. And just like the body, you have to exercise your brain. You have to work on your brain. It's Mindcraft, optimizing your brain. Remember what we read from the Australian government? What else can I do to reduce my blood pressure? Remember what they were? Well, those things are exactly the same. It's the same recipe, believe it or not, for optimizing your brain. For your mental wellness, it's the same recipe. Even people who are not involved in lifestyle medicine, research doctors are now telling us that exercise can be just as effective as antidepressive drugs in the treatment of depression. Exercise, definitely limiting. We would say cut alcohol out. It's contraindicative to a healthy body or a healthy mind. Reduce your salt intake, maintain a healthy diet, lose weight if you're overweight or if you're obese, and definitely quit smoking. All of those things have an effect on this lump of fat and water that's making you think and listen and me talk tonight. But according to Nedley Health Solutions, there's some other things that you can add to help. Apart from the standard lifestyle practices of exercise and healthy diet, stop taking things that are damaging your body and your brain, fresh air, things like that are also recommended. So this is what we have at the lifestyle medicine programs, either the 8-week community program or the 10-day residential over in California. They have found that it helps to read Proverbs. You might ask why to read Proverbs. Well, as you go through the program, you'll learn all the science. It's like doing Lumosity, if anybody knows what that is. It's a program you buy to keep your brain trained. And your brain has to work. It's like doing gymnastics. When you read Proverbs, they're little like riddles. Your brain has to work them out each time. Your brain has to do some functioning. You can't just blandly read it and it doesn't really matter because it's a story and you know what the story is saying in general, and by the time I get to the end of the book I know what happens. No, each proverb makes your brain do a little gymnastic. It's exercising your brain. They recommend doing hot and cold showers or hydrotherapy. It's easy if you come and visit us. We've got a huge big sauna with a log burner in it and a big freezing cold rock pool and a sauna. So we've got our hydrotherapy set up. When you hit that cold water from the sauna, you have a 30% increase in your immune function instantaneously. To fight disease, you've got to get your interferon levels up. The only way you can do that is to get your core body temperature to 40 degrees. To try and do that in water, you're going to boil yourself and you'll die. The only way you can do it is in a sauna where you've got the temperature at 80 to 90 degrees and your core body temperature gets up, increasing your immune function. But hot and cold showers, classical music's recommended. Once again, it's like massaging the brain. We need to adjust our thinking. If there was no other reason to go to the DART program, learning about reframing your thinking is the reason that you want to turn up. And then you sort your circadian rhythms. That's your sleep cycle. And then Greg will talk to you about the different means that you can do that to just get your sleep and your rest cycles in sync again with the way they should be. Get them in with nature. And also in this program, the prescription is that it helps to trust in God, to get out in the fresh air and the sunshine. Sunshine and fresh air are hugely beneficial. And here I am, I've been stuck in all day while the sun was shining on my computer. I feel like a hypocrite. I was just looking, thinking, man, I could just go for a walk in the park today, but I didn't have time. I was preparing for this. And then you record your gratitude in a journal. The results are astounding. For so many people, they feel that they're in darkness. And they just apply the lifestyle. And I could share so many stories, but I'll just share one with you. I'm not going to mention the lady's name, but in Darfield, Kerry was running my wife, who you met last weekend, she was running a depression and anxiety recovery program. She's the trainer for New Zealand to run those programs, and she was just running one in our local area. A lady came who had had severe depression for 20 years. She was incapacitated completely. She just was non-functional. She got to the program, and I remember Kerry coming back. She talks to me about the people, but doesn't share personal details, but just said, look, there's one lady here. I don't know that we can do much for her. She's pretty much a cot case. A week later, she rang up in tears and said to Kerry, I don't know what's happened. She implemented one thing. It was the hydrotherapy, nothing else. And she had her life back. Her husband rang up and he was ecstatic. He said, what have you done? We've tried everything, all the drugs available. He said, I've got my wife back after 20 years. This lifestyle program in 1 week turned her life around. And I meant to say earlier, with high blood pressure, people that are on high blood pressure and diabetes medication, when they come to our lifestyle medicine programs, normally within 2.5 weeks are normalised and off their medication. Normally, I'm saying, not everybody, the majority of them are completely sorted by addressing the cause. And we look at the cause of the problem, why you're in the darkness, why the black dog's following you around, and it gets stripped away. You do not want to miss this program. Let's go back some 2,500 years ago now. Let's go back to the city of Babylon, discovered by Henry Layard and Robert Coldaway last century. Actually, it's not last century, it's a century before now, in the 19th century. And remember, when they discovered that city, they found these blocks, and they had a man's name on them. And they had no idea who this man was. There's no record of him anywhere in history. You remember we talked about that a week ago? The only place they could find the man's name was in this book. He had signed the pillars, he had signed the bricks of this ancient city, the leader of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And his name was Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar. And there's a narrative of something that happened to that man, this king of the Golden Empire. In chapter 4 of the book of Daniel, he spent 7 years eating grass, being like an animal. His hair grew, his fingernails grew. He just turned into a wild animal. But before that happened to him, Neb had some emotional issues. This man Nebuchadnezzar had some serious emotional issues. And as we go through the book of Daniel leading up to that event, we read in Daniel chapter 1 verse 10, one of his closest associates, a man that worked for him, Melzar, said, I fear my lord the king, then shall you make me endanger my head to the king. This man who worked for Nebuchadnezzar was terrified of him because he'd seen what he did to others. Remember we told you the story, 2 Kings 25, what he did to Zedekiah? Killed his sons and then ripped his eyes out so he'd never seen anything else. This guy was ruthless. He was ruthless. He had absolutely no compassion for his fellow man. Daniel 2 verse 1, it says, wherewith his spirit was troubled and his sleep broke from him. He had sleep issues. And one of the biggest promoters and even an indicator of mental issues, that you're dealing with some psychological issues, is broken sleep, not getting a good night's sleep. That's why we focus on that in our lifestyle medicine program. So he's got sleep issues. Daniel 2 verse 12, for this cause the king was angry and very furious and commanded to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. What did he just ask them to do? He'd asked them to do the impossible. And because they couldn't do it, he's going to kill them. Remember, he said, kill them all. That's it. They're all going to die because they couldn't do the impossible. This man's irrational. Verse 46, same chapter, just the same day. The king Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and worshipped Daniel and commanded that they should offer an oblation and sweet odours unto him. This guy has got serious mood swings if he's not bipolar. This guy has got some psychological issues. 3, 5 and 6. He says, worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king set up, and whoso falls not down and worships shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. He's a control freak. He's got control issues. Are you seeing this guy's not psychologically stable? Daniel 3:19. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. This guy has got serious anger issues. He needs an anger management program. Daniel chapter 4, verse 5, he said, I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed and the visions of my head troubled me. Once again, he's got sleep issues. Probably eating way too much pizza before he goes to bed, who knows, but he's not sleeping, he's got broken sleep. And then in verse 30 he says, is not this great Babylon that I have built, for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honour of my majesty? And we saw the tablet that they discovered in Babylon. He said, may it last forever. No king among all the kings has ever created, no earlier king has built what I have magnificently built for Marduk. The guy had a pride issue. And Proverbs 11:2 tells us, when pride comes, then shame comes. Pride comes before a fall. That's exactly what happened. At that point, Nebuchadnezzar went out and lived like an animal for 7 years. Now, we think we're clever with our lifestyle programs because we realise that exercising, cutting out alcohol, reducing salt, maintaining a healthy diet, losing weight, stopping smoking, are all beneficial for helping people that have got these issues. Do you know that's what God did for Nebuchadnezzar? He gave him a regular exercise program. He's out there with the animals. He was on a vegetarian diet. He reduced his salt intake, sugar and spices and rich food as well. He had an abstemious diet. I'm sure he lost weight for 7 years out there eating grass. He wasn't smoking and he wasn't drinking, friends. You remember Nedley's recipe? To read Proverbs, hot and cold showers, classical music, adjust your thinking, sort your circadian rhythms, trust in God, get out in the fresh air and sunshine, record your gratitude in a journal. Let's check, how did he go? What about for music? He was listening to the sound of the birds. There's no better music on the planet than the sound of the birds. We love sitting in there in the morning in our spa pool, and we've got one bird that God sends to sing every morning when I'm at home. There's fresh air and sunshine. He got plenty of that, didn't he? He had hot and cold showers. He was just out there in the rain. He got regular sleep each night. He went to sleep when the sun went down. He reset his circadian rhythms. He adjusted his thinking. He trusted in God. And how do we know that? Because he says, at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honoured him that lives forever. Verse 36, he says, at the same time, my reason returned unto me. He got his thinking sorted out. But there was one thing that we didn't include in the last list. Neil Nedley says it's good to record your gratitude to God in a journal. Do you know that's exactly what Nebuchadnezzar did? Daniel chapter 4. He wrote, that tyrant, that irrational, angry man, had an experience with God, and he wrote a chapter of this book. He wrote chapter 4. And in it he says, Nebuchadnezzar the king, unto all people, nations, languages that dwell on all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that the high God has wrought toward me. He wrote a gratitude journal because he acknowledged that God's lifestyle medicine plan had sorted his messed up life out. Each one of us needs to take care of our brain, to exercise it, do all we can to maintain its health and its strength. And I encourage you, if no matter how messed up you might think your life is, none of us had a life as messed up as Nebuchadnezzar. Even mine that I'll share tomorrow wasn't as messed up as his. Maybe it was, I don't know. I can't judge, but God could fix that man. He can fix you. He fixed me, he can fix you. You've got issues, things that you're concerned with, bring them to Jesus. He can sort it out. And tomorrow we're going to hear a bit of what God's done. I don't want you to hear my story, I want you to hear God's story and not just anything.